In this video, we'll take a look at how students work with story problems will evolve through Unit 6. One of the main standards that we focus on in this unit is OA2. We will work to solve addition and subtraction story problems within 10 using objects and drawings. This unit lasts 32 days, and we will pack a lot of work into those 32 days. One of the things that you'll notice about this unit that is a little bit different from the upper grades is in first and second grade, students are given a story problem that they need to read and then solve. Since our students are mastering reading at the kind of a parallel time for working on these story problems, we typically will use a familiar story from a picture book that they are familiar with, and then they will be creating the story problems so that we take out that hindrance on needing to have mastery of reading to be successful with their story problems. So you will notice at the beginning of most lessons there is a story that can be utilized in the launch section. Kindergarten is responsible for 4 of the 12 different story problem types. If you would like to see more about these story problem types and when they'll work through the others, you can take a look at the last page of the unpacking document. One of the first ones that we will work on is add to result unknown. So typically in these, they're given one part, and then another part comes, and then we're looking for the whole. So for example, there were 2 children playing at the park. 2 more children came to play on the slide. How many children are now at the park? 4. We will also want to continue our work in their math notebook. Hopefully, as students continue to bring in those quick pictures, they will notice the work that we just did in Unit 5 and where we were working with different partners. Some students will come to these lessons in quick pictures ready to use equations, addition signs, subtraction signs, and equal signs. That is fine to go ahead and front load those since we will be using some of the same language. 2 and 2 make 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. However, when you're looking at giving a grade for mastery, that should not be factored in since that does not match part of our standard. So then as students get familiar with their add to result unknown, those will move up to amounts within 10 to give them practice there. Then we will move to adding in take from result unknown. So those will sound a little bit different. For example, there are 5 children playing at the park. 3 children need to go home. How many children are left playing at the park? 2. Typically in my class, we normally are working with the various amounts of manipulatives. So there normally is a pile to the side that they're not utilizing. Instead of sliding the ones that we took away to the pile that we're not using, because that can be confusing when you're trying to draw your quick picture and hold so many amounts in your mind, I typically have my students just place the ones they took away to the side of the mat. Then that way, as we start to make our quick picture look different, they can go back and reference the ones that they slid away instead of trying to remember which ones they took away from the ones they didn't use. So when we're looking at their take from result unknown pictures, they should look different. There were 5 children playing at the park. 3 children needed to go home. How many children are left at the park? 2. Again, also front loading some for first grade. You can have them go back and listen to the story problem and pull out the numbers that they heard in order. There were 5 children playing at the park. 3 children went home. How many children are at the park? 2. Then as we continue our work through, we will also work on put together, take apart, result unknown. Typically with those, both amounts are given within the first sentence. There are 3 red birds at the park. There is 1 yellow bird at the park. How many birds are at the park? And so again, looking to our picture, we can go back to our previous work in the last unit to use our break apart stick to show that we had 3 red birds. We had 1 yellow bird. So when we're looking at how many birds there are at the park, we can answer 4. Then moving on, we will take a look at both add-ins unknown. So for that one, we will do a lot of work back with that partner's work that we did in Unit 5. There are 5 children playing at the park. Some are kindergartners, some are first graders. How many can be kindergartners and how many can be first graders? And we would look for their work to show multiple answers when we're doing the both add-ins unknown story problems. So there could be 4 kindergartners and 1 first grader playing at the park. Another combination could be 3 kindergartners at the park and 2 first graders. And then we could continue on to show multiple different answers of the combinations that could be. Once students have become familiar with the addition and subtraction story problems, we do bring back the number path in the unit. The picture mat will stay at the top, so that way students who are not comfortable with their trust of using just the numerals will be able to still have their counters at the top for reinforcement, especially in the first few lessons. So bringing back, there were 2 students playing on the swing, 2 more students came to play on the slide. How many students are playing at the park? We can start to use our number path to show the 2 that were on the swing and the 2 that were on the slide. That make 4 playing at the park. Students are not expected to be able to draw a number path into their notebook, so this is printed as a black line master, much smaller, so that students can record multiple number path uses throughout for their math notebook that can either just be sent home or taped into their math notebook. As students progress to first grade, this work will then drop into a number line. You can also work with them changing up their pictures using our takeaway, take from result unknown. There were 5 children playing at the park. 3 children needed to go home. How many children are left playing at the park? So then again, their number path picture, like we did with our quick picture, would also need to change. There are 5 children playing at the park. 3 went home, 2 are left. And they can still practice adding in those labels for the work that they did. They first had a group of 5, they took away 3, and now there are 2 that are left to begin to front load some of that work for first grade. As students become more comfortable with using number paths and the different story problem types, then we'll have a focus on their missing add-in. And then we will also bring in one more set of work that will be continued into first grade, which is their number bars. So there were 3 students playing on the slide. 2 students were playing in the sandbox. How many students were playing at the park? The main purpose of them looking at our number bars is to notice that our amounts are the same. So 3 and 2 have the same value as 5. If we were to be off a little bit, students would notice that there was a gap and they needed to double check their work. This can also, if inconsistencies show up, bring back the counters to have them count when you have 3 and 1, how many do you have, and that this would not match and that they would need to change theirs. So as we do move into the number bar lesson, students who still need more practice with the concrete, of course, can still have manipulatives to reinforce those connections between the numerals and the amounts. Looking ahead to their quick picture, we can also continue our front loading of their work in their math notebooks because these will be utilized in upper grades as students start to work with larger amounts and become more comfortable with their numerals. I do typically go ahead and have my students create both rectangles just to make it easy to show that they do have the same value. Then we'll do our break apart line. There were 3 students playing in the sandbox. 2 more students came to play on the slide. How many students are playing at the park? 5. So as students progress through this, the number path obviously will go up to 10 to continue their work up to 10. And then the number bars do go up to 10 as well, so they can continue that work up to 10. If at any point students have inconsistencies, make sure that there are counters or other manipulatives available for them to reinforce those amounts. And then we will begin to move through those, adding in our missing add-in story problem and doing the same thing. Towards the end of Unit 6, we will layer in a couple of days where students have all 3 story problems. So they need to be able to listen to the story problem, think about the action that they would be using as they're solving those, and then which kind of answers we would be looking for as we move through those towards the end of the lesson. And then looking into Unit 7, we would take the story problem that we have done and drop them into some games to create a little bit more fluency as we work through those combinations.